Okay, now we're going to move on to the next step. And this is where you're going to do your review of the analytic data. So this is the core of CP6. So if you need to read the assignment brief really carefully, and make sure that you are creating yourself a table of contents with sort of sensible headings along the way. You should know how to do that now. So at the beginning of the assignment for this step, it's asking you to just put some screenshot evidence in to show how the data was generated. And then obviously you need to write this up. You don't just put screenshots in without sort of annotating them. So just a very brief explanation of how you gathered the data. And it needs to be clear that this analytic data that you're using has been simulated because we couldn't actually post on actual social media. Then if you read the assignment brief, the main aim of P5 is to make sense of the analytics data and to try and draw conclusions from what has been given to you in that bits of data. And it gives you several headings that you need to sort of review the data under. The way I'm going to suggest that you lay it out is in a table. This makes it a lot neater and a lot easier to sort of process what it is that you're writing. So, and also I'm going to show you where the data can come from. So in my table, I'm just going to put in the first bit of analysis. I'm just going to shift my table over a little bit so I've got some space for my graph. So one of the places you can get data from to help you make sense of your analytics is the spreadsheet with the purpley top, the analytics spreadsheet, where you've gone and done some charts and graphs already. So for this first bit, which is all about interaction relating to individual posts, I need to find an appropriate bit of data or a graph that I can put into my table, and then I'm going to write about it in my table. So this one talks all about interaction, but at the moment it's not appropriate because it's not sorted in the right way. It does say it needs to be for individual posts, so I need to think carefully about how I do this. So I'm just going to edit this chart. And I'm going to change where it's got switch rows and columns so I can actually see the individual posts, and then I can talk more about the data easily like that. On that graph or any graph, you just click on the dot, dot, dot and just copy the chart. And then I'm just going to paste that into the table. So that's Control V or right click paste. And we want to unlink it from the spreadsheet. So make sure you paste unlinked. And then the graphs over there. And then you've got plenty of space on the left-hand side to make sense of that data and to try and draw conclusions about what you've been asked to draw conclusions on. So there's lots of other, there's 8 different sort of headings that you're going to be writing under. And I'm just going to show you kind of where to find everything that you need. So the next one is this one. Comparing intended audience by actual audience, gender and age range. Okay, so you know from the company that you're working for what their intended audience is. That was talked about in P3 and P4. So what we're looking at is the data which shows the gender and the age range for the actual posts. So the place that I would suggest that you find this, there's a couple of places you can go. First of all, if you go into the spreadsheet that was created by the questionnaire, you'll see for each post, so this is my social media post number 1, you'll see in there what people thought, what gender people thought would be most appropriate for that post. So for this one, you can see that the majority of people thought it would be mostly men. And then we've got the idea of the age range as well in there. So you can just, although you can't use this data numerically, you can try and make sense of that data. So you could pop a screenshot like that in there, showing exactly what the responses were. The other place you can go to is this. So this is your questionnaire. And in the responses tab, you can see that it would have broken down the sex that the people who responded to your survey suggested would be most appropriate for. So there's another way here to show that data. And again, for the age range, you've got charts and graphs created for you for age range and gender. So that might be a good place to take the data from. So I'm just going to, for example, copy that and pop in here. And then paste in the chart. So that's giving me the gender, and then I can go and get the age range as well. And pop that in the same place. So then I would want to, again, try and make sense of that data for social media post 1 and see how it compared to my actual audience, how my actual audience compared to the intended audience. And then you'd need to do that for the 4 posts. So quite brief, some comments about if it hit the target or not. Another place that you can find data. So let's have a look at the next section. So the next one is highest levels of interaction. And again, you'd go into this spreadsheet for that and find appropriate charts or graphs to put into that one. The next one is identifying the days and times that were most popular. And the way you find data for that one is in this. So again, if you remember in the last step, you altered the times and dates of those posts. So again, you could put a little screenshot of this data into your table and then try and make a little bit of sense of that. So maybe I just take that here, a little screenshot. And underneath that, I would then try and make sense of the data that I've received there. The other bits and pieces are fairly obvious. So as you go through the assignment brief, just pop in the heading for the bit of analysis that you're doing. And then think carefully about where you might find data to help you write that up. I'll just put the last couple in. We're not looking for an awful lot of words, but it literally is for a P task, making sense of the data and trying to come to some sort of conclusion about the data that you've been given to analyse. I'll put the last one in here. So the last bit of data that you've been asked to do some analysis on is a summary of the written feedback that you received. So in that questionnaire, you asked people to give you some feedback. So I'll show you the best place to get that data to put into your table. The best place, I think, is to go back into the responses area. And in here, you can see social media post 1, how would you improve this post? So I would just do a little screenshot of this data here, like that, pop it into my table. And then obviously we're going to write up in there to make sense of what has been said and perhaps summarize the feedback for each post. So you'd need to do that for posts 1, 2, 3, and 4. So then ultimately you'll have a lovely neat table with screenshots, charts and graphs on one side. When you put them in, please make sure you do not change it from in line with text. It needs to sit inside that table neatly. So leave it in line with text. Don't choose the other options. Leave it in line with text. And then you've got space to do your write-up, which is where you're making sense of that data and trying to come to some conclusions about what the data is telling you. So it's not a huge section, but please make sure you're trying to make sense of that data and that you are displaying whatever results are appropriate in a neat and tidy sort of way. I hope that helps.